Hey, Blake T. Weld here, and welcome back to another exciting episode of What Is. This is a continuation, or I guess, of the winner of the 2021 Obscure-tober video series. Obscure-tober was something I did in which I pick 3 random issues, obscure issues from various comics, and at the end of October, the viewer votes for their favorite. And it's been a minute since I've done it, and this was the winner from 2021. So here we are. Before we get started, this episode is brought to you by my Patreon. You get early access to videos when they're available. I have serialized my comics, Destructo Boy and the Custodians Agents of Cross. They are released weekly, Tuesdays for Destructo Boy, Wednesdays for Agents of Cross. I also have 3 different movie series of movie commentaries. One is Marvel Rewind, reliving the MCU. The other is DC Rewind, reliving the Snyderverse. And the final is Popcorn, where I sort of watch whatever movie I decide on, and then have a little short video afterward where I just talk about it, analyze it, whatever. And you'll also get access to behind the scenes of my comics, original art, and more. So check it out. But also check out my Etsy shop, blaketwild.etsy.com, for my physical comics, the physical editions of Destructo Boy and the Custodians, if any are still available. Released in 1991, written by Chuck Dixon with art by Tom Lyle, this is Robin. Tim Drake and Bruce Wayne stand in the Batcave as Tim dons his Robin costume for the very first time. Tim asks why he, of all people, was chosen to become Robin. Bruce says that Tim has the skills to be a great hero, and that Tim is a good person. But Tim says he's not sure he has what it takes. Then they look at a glass case filled with a weird assortment of weapons, like axes, knives, clubs with spikes, guns, and is that a jock strap? And Bruce tells Tim that he doesn't need an impulsive partner who jumps into things without considering the consequences. Not anymore! And Tim has like, what was that last part? Is this like the glass case that Bruce kept Jason's Robin suit in? Did he just quickly empty it out, or have Alfred empty it out and just fill it with a bunch of random crap so Tim wouldn't be sitting there thinking, why is there an empty Robin suit in what is clearly a memorial case? Later, Alfred helps Tim prepare for his trip to Paris to receive some combat trainee. Tim again questions himself and wonders how he'll ever amount to Bruce Wayne, the Batman. Alfred tells Tim to just follow his own path, and that no one person should have or will have the same experience as another. Oh, Alfred, if you only knew what Tim's path is in store for. Alfred finishes by telling Tim that he believes in him. Sometime later, Tim arrives in France, expecting grandeur from a world-famous combatant school. Instead, he finds a rundown apartment block in a back alley. A weird boy with glowing eyes finds him and lets him inside. This is Shen-Chi. Shen leads Tim to where he'll be staying, and they have a little chat before Shen leaves and Tim finishes unpacking. The next day, Tim meets someone whose name is probably fake, Rahul Lama. Raul? Who knows? Shen explains that the llama can only say one sentence in English and that he's far too old for the physical training, so Tim will be following Shen. For the next few weeks, Tim is trained in the ways of subjects like healing and pressure points, while Shen teaches him in combat. Eventually, Shen takes Tim out on the town and they end up in Club Danger. While they're there, there's a young lady who walks up to Tim and starts chatting him up. Tim can't hear her very well, and she takes this as a pickup line to leave the club with him. Shen then moves in and gets handsy with the girl, so she snaps his finger while Tim is looking away. Outside, they walk and talk, and Tim explains that he's in Paris as a student, and the girl flirts with him. Tim gets very nervous when she comes on to him and tries to, nervously shift his pants so his boner doesn't be noticed, when a group of disco karate-themed thugs show up. The leader, Billy, walks over and grabs his girlfriend, Lynx, and starts dragging her away. Tim runs up and tells him to leave her alone, and he kicks Tim in the head. And then the gang all just leave as Tim lies on the ground. And he picks himself back up and follows them to their hideout. the hideout of the ghost dragons. Spooky. Tim gets his bearings and realizes that the school is not far from here, so he runs back and gets his stuff. He breaks into the ghost dragon's hideout as Robin and finds the gang beating up on a guy. Tim swings down with a crane hook and clobbers the gang as their prisoner breaks free and also kicks some ass. Robin introduces himself to Clyde Rollins, which sounds like a wrestler, and they continue fighting the gang as a mysterious woman in a pink outfit watches from a shadowy catwalk above. Clyde and Robin beat the ever-loving shit out of these guys. Well, mostly Clyde, who smashes a guy's face in with his fists, breaks another dude's neck against a wall, and destroys another couple of goons with some nunchucks that he stole off of one of them. All while Tim is just getting his ass handed to him, and pleads with the girl Lynx to leave. Clyde finishes off the last few remaining guys, and the ones that are still conscious get up and flee, and take Lynx with them. Tim gets ready to chase after his love when he's stopped by Clyde, who tells him that they need to stick together. Duo then hobble away as Clyde tells Tim that they need to hide, or else they'll be found again. And later, Billy and his disco karate gang make their way to a warehouse to meet their boss, a giant blonde guy named Sir Edmund Dorrance. Edmund demands to know what happened, and Billy makes up a story about a big guy showing up who is packing serious heat. And then Edmund caves in Billy's nose and orders them to tell him what really happened. Lynx comes forward with the truth. She says that Billy and the others are cowards who couldn't bring themselves to kill the American. And then Edmund and his driver leave. The next day, Clyde wakes up in a fancy hotel to find Tim Drake preparing tea, having seen to his and Clyde's wounds. Clyde introduces himself to Tim, who's keeping his identity a secret for some reason, even though he was wearing the Robin costume last night, and this guy, Clyde, is a DEA agent from America, who should reasonably have some idea of who Robin is. Batman's sidekick. You're the third one, Tim. It's not a new thing. People have heard of him. But anyway, Clyde is like an ex-DEA agent who went rogue after the ghost dragons and their leader, the King Snake, murdered his wife and 2 baby daughters. Got really dark all of a sudden, huh? Clyde grabs his stuff and Tim says that he's coming with him. Then the mysterious woman from the warehouse appears in the window and tells them that they're in danger. And downstairs, the ghost dragons race up to their room, kick down the door, and riddle the place with bullets. But our trio have clambered across the edges of the neighboring buildings, but unfortunately, a gang member spots them from the window and opens fire. The woman leaps to the roof, but Clyde and Robin are pinned down. So what do? But swing across the street from Robin's grapple hook, landing on a nearby neighboring building. The police begin to arrive as the mystery woman escapes in her tiny car, and Robin and Clyde once again hobble away from a fight. That evening, Sir Edmund is once again informed that Billy and the gang failed their task. So he grabs Billy by his hair and snaps his neck. And he calls Lynx over and puts her in charge. He tells Lynx not to bother with the Americans anymore because that was just a whole setback and a complete waste of time, really. But what he wants now is a secret weapon made by the Nazis located in a secret lab somewhere in France. And he orders her to retrieve it for him. Did you think this was just going to be a sort of normal gang-related story? Because it's not. 2 days later, at a small cottage in the French countryside, Tim and Clyde are holed up. Clyde has not been doing well. On top of the injuries he's already sustained, he's also been quite delirious with a fever. Tim reveals that he hacked into Clyde's DEA and government records, because don't forget, Tim Drake is an expert at computers. I'm surprised DC hasn't made Tim Drake the Oracle yet. Tim says that he has the abilities and resources to help Clyde find the King Snake. Clyde asks what Tim wants out of this, and Tim, a horny teenage boy who still thinks that Lynx was kidnapped, is obsessed with rescuing his crush. Over the next week, Clyde teaches Tim in hand-to-hand combat since Tim martial arts training got very sidetracked. He's not doing that again. Those 2 characters that we met, the boy and the old man, they're gone. They're not in this story ever again. That was it. Nothing ever comes of them in this. So, and this also means that Tim is going to, have an interesting amalgamation of some martial arts training, but also, U.S. government military / street combat skills. But anyway, who should appear over their wall of this little villa but the mystery woman, Lady Siva. Later, Shiva reveals that Sir Edmund is King Snake. Dun, dun, dun. And it's not revealed here, but later it'll be revealed / retconned that King Snake is Bane's father. Anyway, she says that she wants him dead because he's too dangerous to live, blah, 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 and she's joining them. She also reveals to Tim that she knows Batman. They start researching what Shiva knows, specifically something called the Krieger Labs, and Tim discovers on the World Wide Web a single source referencing a German scientist named Helmut Krieger who disappeared in 1944 after his bioweapon lab was moved to a small French village. Cut to the Maginot Line. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. A series of fortifications built after World War I to act as a defensive line should another greater war ever arise. Unfortunately, it was a great fortification for the First World War, not so much the second. The trio discover exactly what they're looking for. A disco karate gang. They turn around and discover Shiva is gone. I guess that's where Batman learned it. And Robin and Clyde then make their way down through the bunkers. Unfortunately, they run into some ghost dragons who pin them down. Clyde and Robin split up as Clyde draws their fire, allowing Robin's escape. As Tim races away, a massive explosion goes off from behind him. Robin escapes in a daze, but isn't able to fight off his attackers and is captured. Then he's taken to their leader, Lynx. She calls him an idiot for thinking that she was a damsel in distress, and then slaps the shit out of him a couple of times before she prepares to kill him. Then thousands of bats appear, awoken by gunfire and explosions, and they just swarm throughout the base, freaking everybody out, and Robin is able to escape deeper into the facility, and they just lose track of him and give up. Robin follows them from the piping above, and as he ponders how he's gonna stop them, several of the gang are gunned down by Clyde. Robin is worried a bullet will hit whatever weapon they're transporting, and slams a batarang onto Clyde's hand. The two then race outside, following the gang, and witness them all escape. So they steal a motorcycle and sidecar and begin their chase. As they speed down the road, a gunman from the truck gets a good shot on the motorcycle, and they crash. Clyde picks himself up, telling himself that he's gonna get killed for hanging out with a crazy white boy like this. And then Shiva just races past, completely ignoring both of them, and Robin just starts hoofing it in that direction. A mile later, he arrives at a private airstrip to find an abandoned box truck, Shiva's abandoned Porsche, and a private jet taking off. As Robin watches the plane fly away, Clyde, out of breath, jogs up to him, and they inspect the truck and find Shiva inspecting one of the crates. But unfortunately, the gang was able to load the other one. They burn the truck and the manufactured plague biochemistry weapon, and then leave. Sometime later, Robin uses this weird high-tech laptop to find the plane flight logs, and discovers that Sir Edmund owns it, which isn't a surprise. I don't know why that really has to be brought up. But he does learn that it's going to be flying to Hong Kong. So they book a flight with Tim and Clyde stuck back in coach, and Shiva in first class, having bought all the seats. And while they're on this plane from Paris to Hong Kong, Tim does some more research and learns that the bioweapon that King Snake is after, it's the bubonic plague. Later in Hong Kong, the trio ambush and interrogate members of the Ghost Dragons and learn where King Snake's plane is landing. Later at the landing site, Shiva and Robin watch the plane land and the cargo get unloaded. They race back down to Clyde and their car, and they proceed to tail the transport truck all the way into Hong Kong, where it arrives at the foot of a giant skyscraper. Gee whiz, I wonder who owns that. Inside, King Snake meets up with Lynx, and he demands to know why she lied to him about having killed Robin and Clyde. He calls her an idiot because Robin is the sidekick of Batman, and they either need to fucking deal with that or face Batman's wrath. But he lets her go because a gentleman does not kill a woman. Then he orders his right-hand man to punish her enough to ensure that she doesn't do something like this again. Later that night, at a large estate that Lady Siva, Robin, and Clyde are staying at, Shiva wakes Tim up and orders him to prepare for his true lesson in martial arts. She takes him downstairs and instructs him to pick a weapon, which he chooses a collapsible staff. That's where he gets that from. Then the training begins, and she just beats his ass. Training goes all the way to sunrise when she finally says that the first lesson is over and tells Tim to stop letting his anger control him. And at King Snake's penthouse view of Hong Kong, he laments how his ancestors turned a pitiful fishing village into the world's center of commerce in a century and a half, and now they're just gonna give it all up to the communist Chinese. Like giving a priceless jewel to an idiot, he says. but he plans to deny them the chance to ruin it. Also, he just looks so much like Brock Sampson from Venture Brothers in these panels. It is ridiculous. The next day or so, I guess, Tim has his second lesson, and he actually lands 2 blows and brings Shiva to the ground. And that night, Robin overlooks the Dorrance building. And inside, King Snake and his sidekick, right-hand guy, are preparing, like, the bomb to go off in 7 days to give them enough time to get all their shit done and get out. I also want to point out that his evil driver slash henchman slash, like, major domo, second in command, that guy, black guy, giant hair, his name is Bobo. Anyway, for some reason, Clyde is all of a sudden mad that Tim is here, and he doesn't want him to go along with them on their attack. I guess he wants to, like, make sure he gets the chance to actually kill King Snake, and if Robin is there, Robin's gonna be like, no, no guns, no killing, blah, 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 and try and stop Clyde? That's the only reason I can really think of for, like, this weird character change out of nowhere to occur. Anyway, they all set out on their mission. Robin sneaks inside the building and begins fucking around with the cables and sensors of the security system as Clyde makes his way through the actual building, and Shiva is nowhere to be found. Robin is very quickly discovered by some of King Snake's private military and Bobo, and he's chased through the building. Meanwhile, Clyde finds the just insane-looking penthouse office suite of Edmund Dorrance. He slowly steps through the pillars that line the room, unaware of Edmund's snake-tattoo-chested presence. King Snake then jump kicks Clyde square in the back and karate chops his head. Clyde falls to the ground, unable to move, bleeding profusely from his forehead as King Snake asks where all of his strength of righteous vengeance has gone. And it's revealed that King Snake is blind. Elsewhere, Robin is still hunted by Bobo as he finds the plague container, which they just left in the lobby for some reason. Robin gets the upper hand on Bobo when he uses a slingshot to launch a screw into the barrel of his gun, causing it to explode, and Robin escapes into the elevators now that all the guards have fled in fear of the bioweapon going off, and Bobo is dead. Robin makes his way up to the penthouse where he finds the body of Clyde Rollins, but he feels another presence, and King Snake's voice asks why Robin is all alone. King Snake says that he would have killed Batman as easily as he did Rollins, and that he truly does hope that Batman will try to avenge Robin. Then King Snake proceeds to hunt Robin down by listening to the minute sounds the boy makes. Robin attacks with his staff, but King Snake kicks him in his chest, breaking a couple ribs and sending the boy Wonder reeling away. Robin escapes up into the, like, upper part of the pillars or something, and uses the musical sound of wind passing through his staff to lure King Snake exactly where he wants him. The staff swings right at the martial arts master's head, but he catches it to discover it's tied to a rope. Then Robin puts everything he can into leaping from a pillar and kicking King Snake out of the glass window. King Snake narrowly grabs onto a cable of the building and hangs from the edge. Shiva then appears and tells Robin to kill him. Robin says that she wanted to kill him and he doesn't want to have any part of this. But she says that Robin is her weapon. And Robin just says no and leaves. He's not having any of her bullshit. As he walks away, he hears King Snake's demise as he plummets 50 stories to the street below. Robin then hoists Clyde over his back and slowly, painfully, carries his comrade out of another fight one last time. He arrives in the lobby and is met by a man wielding a gun. This man is Henry Ducard. No, not like Henry Ducard in the Nolan-verse. This Henry Ducard is an assassin who was hired to kill King Snake. There's this whole B story going on through most of the issues involving him just failing pretty much repeatedly, you know, obviously to kill King Snake. I chose to ignore it because it just did not add much. Anyway, Robin lies Clyde's body down and explains what happened with King Snake and the plague and everything, and Henry says that he called the proper authorities and that they'll be here soon. Then he says that he has some information that Robin might be interested in. A ship left Hong Kong for Gotham, which is one hell of a trip. And Henry suggests that Robin and Batman look into it, since the ship was owned by King Snake. And then Henry leaves. 35 to 40 days later, I looked it up. That's how much time it would take for a shipping container ship to get from Hong Kong to New Jersey or New York, wherever Gotham decides to be. The ship arrives in Gotham Harbors. The container of Sir Edmund Dorrance is unloaded, and Robin lands atop of it, releases the crane hook, causing the massive crate containing millions of dollars, pounds, and Deutschmarks and yen to explode across the docks. He expertly battles the ghost dragons with his staff until he discovers Lynx, who is now missing an eye and scarred on one side of her face. She says that her once beautiful visage was ruined because of him, and she doesn't fight back or anything, just sort of cries, and Robin walks away feeling pretty shitty about himself. Then Batman appears and asks why Robin didn't tell him that he's been back in town for a week. Batman then welcomes his sidekick back, and Tim asks if Bruce ever wonders if what they do actually makes a difference. And Batman tells him, "It does to me. And that's all that matters." Then, in a weirdly downer ending, Robin thinks, for him it isn't about saving the world. It's about saving himself. And why am I here? I don't know the answer to that one. Also, it looks like Batman is smiling and, like, super happy as Robin just is pondering the point of existence and what he's doing with his life. That's such a weird final panel. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode of What Is. Let me know what you thought of the comic in the comments below. Let me know if you have any suggestions for comics I should cover. I think it's a fine story. It's cool because, you know, Tim Drake's a good character. I enjoy Tim Drake, like every sophisticated DC comic fan would. But it's not the best story, and it's not the worst story. It's just a fine story. It's weird. It's tonally weird. Like, what is it trying to do? Who is this trying to be for? Because it's Robin, so you'd be like, oh, well, it's gonna be like a more sort of fun and whimsical-esque story where he fights some bad guys, and, you know, there's ninjas there. Ninjas were really popular in the early 90s. When was this, 91? One of them like a teenage kid gets his fucking face brutalized and his neck snapped, and the other one gets her goddamn eye ripped out, and who knows what else was going on there with King Snake. He's a fucking heroin smuggler, kingpin guy. It's just a weird story, man. Like, I don't know. If I had to read it again, I don't think I would. It's not that crucial, honestly. There's better Robin stories. There's at least two other ones before or after this, and then he has, like, his ongoing series. I can't remember how those are. It's been a while since I've actually looked at anything having to do with Robin, especially from this time period. Just like DC Comics themselves, am I right? With all this Tim Drake erasure, eh? I don't really have much to say. I also don't like this portrayal of Batman, where it's like, oh yeah, he's not doing this out of the kindness of his heart, or because he doesn't want other people to experience what he did, blah, 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 or because he wants to actually make the world better by stopping horrible people. He's doing it to make himself feel better, and he's not actually trying to save the world. He's just trying to save what he lost in himself rather than what other people could lose. I don't like that. I'm not a fan. Tim Drake, he's all right being portrayed in here. He's pretty average, honestly. It's fun because he's just ridiculously horny for this girl and obsessed with finding Lynx, but that's not the entire crux of the reason that he's after her. He needs to stop King Snake, who's a pretty average villain. The finale with him is cool, but like the lead up, he doesn't appear at all, aside from like, you know, the two scenes I showed you. And then there's another one where it's like 3 or 4 pages of him just walking through a fucking mansion talking about his evil schemes. And yeah, it's a very average comic book story. I think we can all agree on that. But what is not an average comic book story is The Custodians Agents of Cross, a love letter to the 60s Silver Age era of comics. Over 60 pages is the first issue. All issues are going to be giant size. That is all 6 issues. I have issue 3 completed, and I'm currently working on the pencils of issue 4 right now, as I speak. So check that out at Etsy.com. BlakeTWild.etsy.com. If it's still available at the time of recording, there's only about 2 copies left. Destructo Boy is also available. Destructo Boy issues 1 through 5. A fun sci-fi epic tale. Just zany, funny, weird stuff. Fun for the whole family about a little robot who lives in the far-flung future and is the greatest hero of the giant space station in which he lives. He battles crime, villainy, giant monsters, whatever threats should arise. Check those out at my Etsy shop, or check out the serialized weekly release digital versions on my Patreon. Patreon.com/Smokey's videos. But yeah, other than that, follow me on Instagram at NotBlakeWild. Follow me on Threads at NotBlakeWild. Follow me on Blue Sky at NotBlakeWild, I guess, if you have those. And I will see you next time for a special Halloween treat. Bye.